Today, a Russian missile hit an apartment block in President Zelensky's hometown of Kryvyi Rih, the latest in a wave of attacks on civilian areas in eastern and southern Ukraine, which kill and maim and make life even more terrifying and miserable. A drone attack on Mykolaiv last night hit Lyubov Marushchak's house. She's not quite sure how she survived.
This house is divided into two parts. All three people were killed in the other half. Their brother also lived there with the family. His wife died. She was buried in the rubble.
A second winter of war is getting underway, and with it the prospect of further Russian advances. Ukraine is running out of anti-aircraft shells and the weapons it needs just to hold the front line, let alone take back territory. Russia is closing in on the strategic hub of Pokrovsk and advancing on a front to the south, capturing Ukrainsk and surrounding Vuhledar and Kurakove, while launching missiles and swarms of drones armed with thermobaric bombs on the major cities of Zaporizhia, Kryvyi Rih, Mykolaiv and Odessa. The Russians launched a series of intense attacks on Odessa just after Donald Trump was re-elected.
It was like a switch. That evening, the attack started, wave after wave of drones just circling the city, waiting for their moment to come in. What they've done now is they've put thermobaric heads on the warheads. Now they hit, and there's just an enormous fireball is created, so it will fill a building and then explode.
The Russian defense minister has been inspecting the drones that are bringing misery to Ukraine's civilians and awarding medals to combat soldiers. President-elect Trump's threat to withdraw military aid to Ukraine and enforce negotiations would help Russia, possibly freezing the lines. But President Putin, today meeting the North Ossetian leader, is also likely to insist that Ukraine should never join the EU or NATO, and preferably have a puppet government that he can control. Last night, Ukraine launched drones that hit a residential building near Moscow. And they've released footage they say shows them hitting Russian armor in the Kursk region. But although they're still fighting in Kursk, which is inside Russia, the Biden administration won't allow them to fire US weapons across the border, so they're limited in their attempts to take the fight to the Russians. Today, the Prime Minister was in Paris with President Macron, commemorating the end of the Great War in 1918. 106 years, and soldiers are once again fighting in trenches in Europe. Only this time, American support given at the beginning may now be withdrawn. An enforced peace might save the lives of thousands of soldiers, but it might also mean that the Ukrainians who have died defending the independence of their country sacrificed their lives for nothing.
Well, earlier I spoke to the Deputy Czech Foreign Minister, Eduard Hulisius, and started by asking him if he thought anything would change between now and the beginning of next year when Donald Trump comes to power.
I think anything can happen, really, because in this war we have seen so many totally surprising developments, including it's begun also with the weather conditions changing. We will have soon winter in the east, so I can expect, for example, freezing of the lines, new developments around Kursk. Anything can happen.
What do you think Europe should be doing to accelerate the course of the war?
Well, Europe should continue doing what it does. That means supporting Ukraine in its defense against the Russian aggression. We should keep focused on our main task. That means growing our own resilience and also production of defensive armaments and measures, and just keep doing what we do.
And do you think it should be preparing to spend a great deal more money on Ukraine in case Donald Trump cuts aid to that country?
Well, already now, Europe is the main supporter of Ukraine, and well, we have to be ready to continue because it's a just thing to do.
But there may be tens of millions of dollars withdrawn by America. Do you think that would be replaced by European partners?
We would have to prepare for any development, but on the other hand, let's wait and see. We are not there yet. At this moment, nothing is changing.
Can I ask you about the other aspect that is going to be, Europe's going to be engaged with quite soon, which is the question of tariffs, which President Trump has also talked a great deal about. Are you preparing for a potential trade war?
Well, this should be a question put for someone in Brussels, because on the trade policy, this European Union prerogative, and there I understand that many preparations were done, that the people responsible at the DG for trade are ready, and we have advantage that we already had discussions with President Trump during his first mandate a few years ago, when there were discussions, there was a lot said, but then in the end what transpired was something a bit different. And I hope that the same will be in this case.
How do you in the European Union regard Britain then in terms of this particular dynamic? Would you expect Britain to be on the side of Europe or on the side of America?
On the tariffs issue, to be sure, I'm not entirely certain where President Trump puts the imports from Britain. If it's part of the criticism of unlimited imports from Europe, and he considers Britain as well, then I think Britain will be interested to be on the side of the European Union, or if there are any other dimensions of this, I'm really not aware. But of course, having Britain in the European Union now would be really very useful for both sides.
Right, but the question, I suppose, that worries some people is that if Britain were to get a preferential deal, a trade deal with America, might Europe impose tariffs on Britain?
I would say this is one of the very sensitive topics where we would have to see when we are there. Really.
Well, that's not a no.
You know how much difficulties and efforts it gives, or it gave and it gives to create the economic and trade relationship between the United Kingdom and the European Union, and having this extra spice added to this dish would be, of course, challenging.
Minister, thank you very much indeed. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Have a good night.